Hello, everybody. I'm Helber, and this is Dagon, a visual novel of the short story by H.P. Lovecraft, which I found it for free on Steam, so I was thinking, oh, I'll play through this, but turns out it's kind of cheap, so I bought some DLC for it, because the devs seem to have really put some effort into this, actually. So the free game on its own seems nice enough, but they deserve a little bit of DLC money as well because they're pretty cool, and I think they've done a pretty nice job of making the novel, well, the short story, really feel eerie while still being presented on screen. And that's something can be hard to do. Now it's gonna be a pretty short stream because it is a pretty short story, and they aren't really doing a lot different with it. It's just very much directly the story. I'm gonna wait a little bit. Had people in chat. Hey Vashnu, welcome in. Are going to honestly gonna wait a little extra minute. Posting my going live tweet. All that nonsense. Hey Rumpy! Happy Spooky Wayne. October has come, and as you can tell, I am very spooky today. We get right into this playthrough of Dagon. I just tested it to see if it works, and it works just fine. Faithful interactive adaptation of H.P. Lovecraft's work, focused on story and atmosphere. You will not find difficult choices, section sequences, or for management. Blah blah blah. Yeah, it's not really not so much a game, very much a visual novel in the literal sense of the word.
I am writing this under an appreciable mental strain, since by tonight I shall be no more.
Oh, okay. Yes. Look around. Things. A tin. Wait, why is there a tin on the floor? Who knows? Let's see if there's any secrets on the very first screen. Ah! Text jump scare. As to letters, my case is peculiar. I write such things exactly as easily and as rapidly as I would utter the same topics in conversation. Indeed, epistolary expression is with me largely replacing conversation. My condition of nervous prostration becomes more and more acute. I cannot bear to talk much now. I am becoming silent as a spectator himself. My loquacity extends itself on paper. H.P. Lovecraft to Reinhard Kleiner, December 23rd, 1970. So these are letters from Lovecraft himself to his friends. A lot of what we know and understand of authors of this period comes from letters. People used to write that. People used to write letters. Isn't that something? It's a little bit like someone airing out your emails, which is uncool, but it has been a very big part of understanding not just the authors themselves, but also the mythos that they've created. The same happened with Tolkien, famously. His letters with many of his friends and colleagues that really served to expand the universe that we enjoy so much today. Throughout his life, Lovecraft penned around 100,000 letters to his friends and fans, out of which about 10% survive to this day, but his tendency to endless correspondence was a relatively late growth. In youth, I scarcely did any letter writing. Thanking anybody for a present was so much of an ordeal that I would rather have written a 250-line pastoral or a 20-page treatise on the rings of Saturn. Lovecraft often skipped meals to afford postage. Collections of his correspondence have been published in various books and letters found online. Some readers consider them as his most important legacy. We shall look for this stuff where we find it as we go through.
Penniless, and at the end of my supply of the drug which alone makes life endurable, I can bear the torture no longer, and shall cast myself from this garret window into the squalid street below. Do not think from my slavery to morphine that I am a weakling or a degenerate. When you have read these hastily scrawled pages, you may guess, though never fully realize, why it is that I must have forgetfulness or death.
Anything to look at here? Certainly some letters, but nothing seems to be actual. It's very ominous. Oh, there's nothing. Forfeit entry. Fear paid on the American Civil War and World War. It's also sold without restrictions until 1914. Ah, a better time. when you could get meth at the drugstore and just go home with it, and knock yourself out. Ah, the good old days. Morphine became more popular after the invention of the hypodermic syringe. First isolated substance originally named it morphium after Morpheus, the Greek god associated with dreams. Because morphine, used correctly, is a relaxant that can help put people to sleep. Obviously, we ended up finding way dumber ways to use morphine over time. At the time when Dagon was published, morphine abuse, known as soldier's disease, already posed a big problem in the United States. Yeah, obviously, this is because, partly because so many soldiers during the World Wars, not just World War One, but the American Civil War, World War One, and then World War Two, were treated using morphine. So they, even after they left the battlefields, they would be taking morphine fairly regularly to deal with the pain from whatever injuries they had sustained on the battlefield, which even meant that even if they healed from the wounds to a significant degree, sometimes they would continue taking morphine for chronic pains, but also sometimes they would become addicted to the morphine itself, and even though they didn't actually need morphine for the pain anymore, they had become hopelessly addicted, and that is not just a problem in the United States, but it became a problem throughout the world. In the Western world after World War One, but then also in Japan and China after World War Two, because it was extensively used soldiers there as well.
It was in one of the most open and least frequented parts of the broad Pacific that the packet of which I was supercargo fell a victim to the German sea raider.
That does not look much like a sea raider, because it doesn't seem to have any guns. No, we don't have any guns either on our little boat here, but generally speaking, a sea raider would need to have some sort of guns in order to take another ship. But maybe this is one of those masquerading ships, because they did a lot of that in World War One. They would disguise merchant ships, or they would actually have straight up just cargo vessels and then put guns on them in little hidey holes, pop out and use for raiding, which is what this is based on. Is there anything we can see? Oh, there's something. Dagon was written around a month after the United States entered World War I. Lovecraft was actively interested in its course. He composed many poems in which he gave encouragement to soldiers and commented on the events unfolding in Europe. He tried to enlist in the army, which he mentions in one of the letters to Reinhard Kleiner. Some time ago, impressed by the entire uselessness in the world, I resolved to attempt enlistment despite my almost invalid condition. I argued that if I chose a regiment soon to depart for France, my sheer nervous force, which is not inconsiderable, might sustain me till a bullet or piece of shrapnel could more conclusively and effectively dispose of me. Though he passed the physical exam, his mother prevented him from going to the war. A good idea, in retrospect. Many other famous authors of his time did go to World War I, and they did not recommend it. It was, Tolkien, for example, and may have lived a very long and successful life after the war. He did not look fondly upon his experiences in the trenches. He has threatened to go to any lengths, eager or otherwise, if I do not reveal all the ills which unfit me for the army. W to Mrs. Lovecraft for keeping her son from dying horribly in a war that, frankly, he had no business going to. Not to say that there wasn't a reason for the United States to enter the war, but Lovecraft in particular was not a man for the trenches.
The Great War was then at its very beginning, and the ocean forces of the Hun had not completely sunk to their later degradation.
By later degradation, we mean, of course, the unrestricted submarine warfare, where the German Navy would resort to sinking any vessel they believed was supplying the Allies, regardless of, well, their flag, or indeed regardless of the distinct chance that there would be no hope of survival for the crew. Earlier in the war, they would fight more gentlemanly, as it were. Although this is true of much of the war. It began with a sort of delusions of gentlemanliness of a clean war, and things got progressively significantly worse. Very quickly, in fact.
So that our vessel was made a legitimate prize, whilst we of her crew were treated with all the fairness and consideration due us as naval prisoners.
The Huns were Central Asian nomads who established a dominion in Europe and invaded the Roman Empire in the 5th century AD. They were known as brutal, deadly warriors and masters of quick raids who also developed powerful composite bows, lassos, and early siege weapons. During World War I, British used the word Hun as a synonym for Germans. Synonym, not cinnamon, in order to emphasize their brutality. However, the term originated when the German Emperor Wilhelm II gave a speech to his troops, 27th of July 1900, before they embarked to China. I believe would have been part of the Boxer Rebellion. Should you encounter the enemy, he will be defeated. No quarter will be given. Prisoners will not be taken. Whoever falls into your hands is forfeited. Just as 1,000 years ago, the Huns under their king Attila made a name for themselves, one that even today makes them seem mighty in history and legend. May the name German be affirmed by you in such a way in China that no Chinese will ever again dare to look cross-eyed at a German. Refusal to take prisoners was a clear breach of the laws and customs of war adopted during the First Hague Convention of 1899. Conclusion? Wilhelm II, a bit of a dick. Oh, we walked. That was our first actual walking animation.
So liberal, indeed, was the discipline of our captors that 5 days after we were taken, I managed to escape alone in a small boat with water and provisions for a good length of time.
These are some pretty crappy captors. Although, I suppose it's not their problem if he goes and kills himself in the ocean.
When I finally found myself adrift and free, I had but little idea of my surroundings. Never a competent navigator, I could only guess vaguely by the sun and stars that I was somewhat south of the equator. Of the longitude, I knew nothing, and no island or coastline was in sight.
Can we look at anything? Just what must be the moon. We shall sail to the moon.
The weather kept fair, and for uncounted days I drifted aimlessly beneath the scorching sun, waiting either for some passing ship or to be cast on the shores of some habitable land.
This, incidentally, is why his captors were not that concerned about him escaping. Because escaping was a dumb fuck idea.
But neither ship nor land appeared, and I began to despair in my solitude upon the heaving vastness of unbroken blue. The change happened whilst I slept.
Uh-oh.
Its details I shall never know, for my slumber, though troubled and dream-infested, was continuous.
Uh-oh. That's a squid. A very most unfortunate looking squid. And his even more unfortunate friend there. A boat. I hope. Ooh, this is not only creepy, worse, this is icky.
When at last I awoke, it was to discover myself half sucked into a slimy expanse of hellish black mire, which extended about me in monotonous undulations as far as I could see, and in which my boat lay grounded some distance away. Though one might well imagine that my first sensation would be of wonder at so prodigious and unexpected a transformation of scenery, I was in reality more horrified than astonished.
I know you've seen this anime. I know what you've seen.
For there was in the air and in the rotting soil a sinister quality which chilled me to the very core.
Creepy.
The region was putrid with the carcasses of decaying fish and of other less describable things which I saw protruding from the nasty mud of the unending plain.
The mud dimension. It's pretty sad.
Perhaps I should not hope to convey in mere words the unutterable hideousness that can dwell in absolute silence and barren immensity. There was nothing within hearing and nothing in sight save a vast reach of black slime. Yet the very completeness of the stillness and the homogeneity of the landscape oppressed me with a nauseating fear. The sun was blazing down from a sky which seemed to me almost black in its cloudless cruelty, as though reflecting the inky marsh beneath my feet.
Here we go. We're just looking at these poor wormy boys. Yeah, should we help them? Maybe it's not. Maybe it's for the best not to bother. They do seem to be pretty grabby. Oh.
As I crawled into the stranded boat, I realized that only one theory could explain my position.
Aside from having a bizarre nightmare, that's what I feel like this would be if I was on the ocean, and then it turns out that the entire ocean is made of slime and covered in squids. I feel like this would just be a dream. Oh, that whatever that is can't be good. Ah, I don't like that. See this guy. Look at this guy. Is that fucking trilobite? Those guys don't exist anymore. Wait, a tin. I want that. We should look inside that thing. Might be some supplies in there or something.
Through some unprecedented volcanic upheaval, a portion of the ocean floor must have been thrown to the surface, exposing regions for which innumerable millions of years had lain hidden under unfathomable watery depths.
How are they wiggling their things? They don't have enough strength in their bone. They don't have bones, so they can't quite move their tentacles up and down like that.
So great was the extent of the new land which had risen beneath me that I could not detect the faintest noise of the surging ocean, straining my ears as I might. Nor were there any seafowl to prey upon the dead things.
More. Must be something we can explore here. No? Still just this fish. What is that fish? The body makes me think of like a flounder, but that head is not a flounder head.
For several hours I sat thinking or brooding in the boat, which lay upon its side and afforded a slight shade as the sun moved across the heavens. As the day progressed, the ground lost some of its stickiness and seemed likely to dry sufficiently for traveling purposes in a short time. That night I slept but little, and the next day I made for myself a pack containing food and water, preparatory to an overland journey in search of the vanished sea and possible rescue.
No? I can't look at the fish. Guess we're just ignoring the fish.
On the third morning, I found the soil dry enough to walk upon with ease.
Oh lord. That's This is another prehistoric creature, this long... I forget the name of these. They're like long bone-shaped shells. And like a tiny squid creature up front. I do not remember what they're called. They're not ammonites, but they're related to ammonites.
The odor of the fish was maddening, but I was too much concerned with graver things to mind so slight an evil, and set out boldly for an unknown goal.
Alright, shall we look at... We still can't look at all the interesting fish. We still just have to walk into the distance, I guess.
All day I forged steadily westward, guided by a faraway hummock which rose higher than any other elevation on the rolling desert.
Alright, okay, we're definitely getting, okay, yeah. I think we've gotten past the point of just, real historical and prehistoric life. What in the absolute shitfuck is that? I don't like that. Like that one bit. Yeah, looks like Surg creep. Oh, it's a whale. Hello. That whale's eyes look strangely alive. But this guy looks kind of normal. But these things, yeah, these are very Zergy. Like, they just make this a little more purple, and this is pretty much exactly how it would feel to look to.
That night, I encamped. and on the following day still travelled toward the hummock, though that object seemed scarcely nearer than when I had first espied it.
I don't know what a hummock is, but I'm assuming it's some specific term for a hill or mountain. Small mountain. Ugh, this is gross. This is really cool. I really enjoy the aesthetic of this game. Like as I said before, they've really done a pretty good job creating this feeling of this genuinely does not feel like a normal place. Like just an endless ocean of muck and these bizarre feature parts just suggesting something. Ooh. Oh, I like this. Still can't look at them. We just gotta keep moving.
By the fourth evening, I attained the base of the mound, which turned out to be much higher than it had appeared from a distance. An intervening valley setting it out in sharper relief from the general surface. Too weary to ascend, I slept in the shadow of the hill.
Oh, I would not want to sleep in the mud. Probably prop yourself up on a rock or something. Because sleeping in mud, really dangerous. Because you have no idea how deep the mud could actually sink, drag you down.
I know not why my dreams were so wild that night, but ere the waning and fantastically gibbous moon had risen far above the eastern plain.
Gibbous moon. That's not a word. You can't, Lovecraft, you can't just make up you can't just make up words like that. I'm sure there's a real definition of gibbous. Just he was a man who knew a lot of words all the way back in the 1910s. Which means that not only did he know a lot of words in general, but also a lot of words that we have long since stopped using. Gibbous is a fabulous word.
I was awake in a cold perspiration, determined to sleep no more. Such visions as I had experienced were too much for me to endure again.
Of the moon, having the part greater than a semicircle and less than a circle. So, so that basically, not a full moon, not a half moon, just a little bit more than a half moon. So that's a perfectly gibbous moon.
And in the glow of the moon I saw how unwise I had been to travel by day. Without the glare of the parching sun, my journey would have cost me less energy.
Maybe, but the sun also makes the ground firmer, allowing us to actually move.
Indeed, I now felt quite able to perform the ascent which had deterred me at sunset. Picking up my pack, I started for the crest of the eminence.
Nothing interesting to look at,
I have said that the unbroken monotony of the rolling plain was a source of vague horror to me. But I think my horror was greater when I gained the summit of the mound and looked down the other side into an immeasurable pit or canyon, whose black recesses the moon had not yet soared high enough to illumine. I felt myself on the edge of the world, peering over the rim into a fathomless chaos of eternal night. Through my terror ran curious reminiscences of Paradise Lost, and of Satan's hideous climb through the unfashioned realms of darkness.
Oh, don't jump. That's a terrible idea.
As the moon climbed higher in the sky, I began to see that the slopes of the valley were not quite so perpendicular as I had imagined. Ledges and outcroppings of rock afforded fairly easy footholds for a descent.
Okay, we're gonna climb down. Not jump, We're gonna climb down nice and slow.
Whilst after a drop of only a few hundred feet, the declivity became very gradual.
That glowing blue thing can't be good. First thing I noticed, the lack of perpendicularity. Exactly. You just have better night vision than this guy does, Smash New. You could tell that it was not perpendicular without the moon illuminating it quite as much. This guy though, he doesn't have the same night vision you do.
Urged on by an impulse which I cannot definitely analyze, I scrambled with difficulty down the rocks and stood on the gentler slope beneath, gazing into the Stygian deeps, where no light had yet penetrated. All at once, my attention was captured by a vast and singular object on the opposite slope, which rose steeply about 100 yards ahead of me. An object that gleamed whitely in the newly bestowed rays of the ascending moon.
That can't be good. Look at that little glow over there. I don't think we can go to the glow. I think we have to continue on. Everything is lickable.
That it was merely a gigantic piece of stone.
There's some things that are only lickable once.
But I was conscious of a distinct impression that its contour and position were not altogether the work of nature.
What, you think? You think a very finely cut rectangle wasn't naturally made? I guess people in the 1910s weren't that educated. Nature does not work in rectangles. Nature likes to work in circles and occasionally triangles and derived polyhedrons, very rarely rectangles.
A closer scrutiny filled me with sensations I cannot express.
Well, I guess because he can't express them, he doesn't have anything more to say about that.
For despite its enormous magnitude and its position in an abyss which had yawned at the bottom of the sea since the world was young, I perceived beyond a doubt that the strange object was a well-shaped monolith, whose massive bulk had known the workmanship and perhaps the worship of living and thinking creatures. Dazed and frightened, yet not without a certain thrill of the scientist's or archaeologist's delight, I examined my surroundings more closely.
Can we examine his surroundings, or is it still just the one spot? Because it started out giving me a lot of stuff to look at that wasn't just the next part, but now it seems to only be giving me the matter. On into the mud. Oh no!
The moon, now near the zenith, shone weirdly and vividly above the towering steeps that hemmed in the chasm, and revealed the fact that a far-flung body of water flowed at the bottom, winding out of sight in both directions and almost lapping my feet as I stood on the slope.
Oh, so it's like I thought this just looks like a puddle, but no, apparently it does continue out into the sides there. Or river? Question mark? Called something else, I think, but you know, at least that means we're probably closer to show. What the fuck is that? Oh, that's a lot of stuff drawn on the monolith, isn't it? That can't be good.
Across the chasm, the wavelets washed the base of the Cyclopean monolith.
Cyclopean as a descriptor refers to big rock because of an interesting historical archaeological reference. I have to interject something interesting for a bit. Uh, they're these giant monolith, not they're megaliths, they're megalithic structures on the island of Crete that were built by the ancient Mycenaeans and Minoans, and for a time, people didn't quite understand how they were made because the knowledge was lost when the Minoan civilization was destroyed. And so there was mythology developed that they had been raised by the Cyclops, which were the Cyclopes, which were multiple the plural of the plural of Cyclops is Cyclope, if I remember correctly. Anyway, they had been raised by giants. That's come to refer to that type of architecture, of megalithic architecture, where you'd have a lot of big rocks stacked together. It's called Cyclopean architecture, and this is not it. This is a monolith. It is also a megalith, but it is not composed of multiple megaliths. It's just one big one. So pyrite and other crystals and stuff like that grows in cube shapes, natural rectangles. Okay, so this is just a massive coincidence that this pyrite has grown into a perfect rectangle and also into patterns looking like fish and human faces. So, yep, mystery solved. This is all natural. We can go home now.
On whose surface I could now trace both inscriptions and crude sculptures.
Can we look at the water? Can we look at something else? Nope, still looking way up there.
The writing was in a system of hieroglyphics unknown to me, and unlike anything I'd ever seen in books.
Hey, you guys recognize that guy's face in the middle of the screen there? He looks familiar to me.
Consisting for the most part of conventionalized aquatic symbols such as fishes, eels, octopi, crustaceans, mollusks, whales, and the like. Several characters obviously represented marine things which are unknown to the modern world, but whose decomposing forms I had observed on the ocean-risen plain.
I like how of all of these, there's various sharks and sea stars. Down here, there are sea monsters, and then it's just a lionfish. That guy on the far right is just a lionfish. Fuck lionfish, you dickheads. Everybody hates lionfish.
It was the pictorial carving, however, that did most to hold me spellbound.
Dagon contains many themes and storytelling methods that Lovecraft developed in his later works, such as through carvings at the Mountains of Madness, the Nameless City, journals and characters' notes, The Shadow Out of Time, The Haunter in the Dark, islands emerging from the ocean, Call of Cthulhu, or fictional beings and deities based on real events and mythologies. Mygo. It's also considered the origin of the popular Cthulhu. Some of Lovecraft's other stories also conclude in a manner similar to Dagon. Let's skip the details in order not this ending. Well, the ending is going to happen in a couple of minutes. I have in fact read Dagon. I know it doesn't go very long after this. It's a pretty short story. But yes, that does in fact seem to be a certain friend of ours named Charles. We'll call him. Also a crocodile. Oh, and that up there might be a cat. Oh, that thing. Oh, that's one ugly little guy.
Plainly visible across the intervening water on account of their enormous size were an array of bas-reliefs whose subjects would have excited the envy of a Doré.
Isn't it pronounced bas-reliefs? Someone look this up for me. Is it pronounced a bas-relief or a bas-relief? Because I always want to say bas-relief, but I seem to remember people pronouncing it bas-relief. Like the S is silent.
I think that these things were supposed to depict men, at least a certain sort of men. Though the creatures were shown disporting like fishes in the waters of some marine grotto. or paying homage at some monolithic shrine which appeared to be under the waves as well.
Oh, it's a self-portrait of the monolith on the monolith. Very clever.
Of their faces and forms I dare not speak in detail,
I mean, there isn't much form in detail.
for the mere remembrance makes me grow faint. Grotesque beyond the imagination of a Poe or a Bulwer.
These are some pretty ugly fellows, must be said. This guy looks like the Novo Sapiens from Metro. This guy looks like a Tau from Warhammer 40k. That's clearly a Batarian from Mass Effect, which means that he's the biggest dick of them all. Looks like people pronounce it however they want. All right, enough. This guy looks just surprised, like an owl. His mouth is pointing the wrong direction.
They were damnably human in general outline, despite webbed hands and feet, shockingly wide and flabby lips.
I don't barely see any lips on these guys.
Glassy, bulging eyes.
That's true.
And other features less pleasant to recall. Curiously enough, they seem to have been chiseled badly out of proportion with their scenic background. For one of the creatures was shown in the act of killing a whale, represented as but little larger than himself.
Uh-oh. That can't be good. Unless that's a really small whale. Whales actually used to be very small. Like, obviously there are dolphins and stuff today, but there used to actually be very, very small baleen whales in prehistory that were about the size of modern dolphins. And yes, you did point that out, Vexed. It does. The portraits of the guys up there does look a bit like the cover of Bohemian Rhapsody. That is true.
I remarked, as I say, their grotesqueness and strange size, but in a moment decided that they were merely the imaginary gods of some primitive fishing or seafaring tribe.
Imagine having your gods and just saying like, yeah, they go out and they punch whales. Just not even like not like Norse gods that fight like with sea monsters, or the sea monsters of Greek mythology, like what's it called? Not the Hydra, the big one. Oh, I forget the names now. But no, this guy just goes out and fights regular whales that aren't even doing anything. They're just existing. He just goes, fuck them. Fuck them whales. Nuke the whales.
Some tribe whose last descendant had perished eras before the first ancestor of the Piltdown or Neanderthal man was born.
Piltdown Man reference. Piltdown Man is interesting because it was fake. There was an attempt to create a fake human ancestor by some scientists that they called the Piltdown Man, by basically manipulating the skeletal remains of, I believe, a chimpanzee or an orangutan. And it was eventually discovered because evolutionary science is an actual science. They recognized that the Piltdown Man seemed to be wrong for what it should be if it was in the human evolutionary tree, and after that made them investigate it closer and realized it was actually just a monkey, and those bastards have been trying to trick people with it. That's how you know that evolution is an actual science, because you can make predictions based on it.
Awestruck at this unexpected glimpse into a past beyond the conception of the most daring anthropologist, I stood musing whilst the moon cast queer reflections on the silent channel before me. Then, suddenly, I saw it.
What? What do we see? Oh. Maybe you shouldn't have called the water queer, dude. It's gonna come up there and it's gonna kick your ass.
With only a slight churning to mark its rise to the surface, the thing slid into view above the dark waters.
This is the 1910s. You can't just call people queers. They're gonna break your fucking legs. Ow, jeez.
Fiend-like and loathsome, it darted like a stupendous monster of nightmares to the monolith, about which it flung its gigantic scaly arms, the while it bowed its hideous head and gave vent to certain measured sounds. I think I went mad then. Of my frantic ascent of the sloping cliff and of my delirious journey back to the stranded boat, I remember little. I sang a great deal and laughed oddly when I was unable to sing.
Yeah, let's just go home. Fuck this.
I have indistinct recollections of a great storm sometime after I reached the boat. At any rate, I know that I heard pearls of thunder and other tones which nature utters only in her wildest moods.
Well, the squid guys have stopped twitching. I guess they've all just finally died now. Poor guys.
When I came out of the shadows, I was in a San Francisco hospital. Brought thither by the captain of the American ship which had picked up my boat in mid-ocean. In my delirium, I had said much, but found that my words had been given scant attention. Of any land upheaval in the Pacific, my rescuers knew nothing, nor did I deem it necessary to insist upon a thing which I knew they could not believe.
This is the real horror. 1910s medicine. Actually, this is 1914? Or 1915. It means that the Spanish flu is about to happen and everybody's gonna fucking die. Oh no! No, okay, we need to go back to the island so we can stay away from all the people and not get infected by the Spanish flu. Lovecraft is a prominent figure in the world of amateur journalism. In 1915, he started publishing his own journal called The Conservative, which included political and social commentary, poetry, short stories, and literary criticism written by him and other authors. Howard was a skilled wordsmith, but he also took criticisms to heart, which resulted in his decision to step away from writing poetry and concentrate on weird fiction again. The first time since his teenage years. Basically, he got mad that people called him a dumbass, and he went to write spooky stories about monsters instead of poetry. Dagon, published in 1919, is one of the short stories written during that period. In this example excerpt from The Conservative, the master of horror fiction explains his attitude towards warfare and the idea of world peace. Why any sane human being can believe in the possibility of universal peace is more than a conservative can fathom. Should the entire civilized world agree simultaneously to disarm, one or more nations would undoubtedly retain secret armaments, at the proper time take advantage of their more altruistic and less astute contemporaries in a wild career of conquest against unarmed victims. No country is, or ever can be, above warfare until the basic impulses of the human animal should have miraculously changed. Absolutely fucking based. If you are not peaceful when you are unarmed, you are harmless. You can only be peaceful if you are both peaceful and armed. Because any peace without the ability to defend yourself is just weakness waiting to be exploited by someone stronger. That is why armed neutrality is the only neutrality that matters. Telekinetically opened that door.
Celebrated ethnologist.
Celebrated ethnologist. don't think we're allowed to call people that anymore.
And amused him with peculiar questions regarding the ancient Philistine legend of Dagon, the fish god.
Boobies! Oh no, wait, it's a Twitch. I can't view boobies on Twitch. That's gonna, because they're not real boobies. They had to be censored because Twitch is weird about this. They have to censor virtual boobies, but not real ones. Dagon. Dagon was the main deity of the Philistines, worshipped throughout the Middle East as the ancient god of fertility and crops. In Hebrew, the word Dagon was a common noun for grain. The rulers of Akkad, Mesopotamia, chose him as the patron saint of their war conquests. He also appeared as the judge of the dead in a Syrian poem on an underworld prison warder in one of the Babylonian texts. He is often mistakenly taken for a fish god due to the wrong interpretation of the name, as in Hebrew the word dag means fish. In Lovecraft's work, Dagon is an underwater deity ruling over the Deep Ones, a humanoid race with fish traits that reside in the oceans. He is worshipped by a secret cult called the Esoteric Order of Dagon. Well, it's not Dagon's fault that people speak Hebrew, I guess.
But soon perceiving that he was hopelessly conventional, I did not press my inquiries.
Here's a Necronomicon. Probably, ooh, that. Multiple things we can look at here. Or the multiple things we can look. Oh, okay. Yes, there are multiple things we can look at. Very fascinating. Start with the Necronomicon. August Derleth was an American writer and an anthologist. He also befriended Lovecraft and published many of his works about his company, Arkham House. Though he greatly contributed to the popularization of the author's work after his death, surrounded by numerous controversies. One of his most questionable decisions was introducing good and evil doctrine. Derleth was a devout Catholic. Sorry, I'm having a problem pronouncing the name Derleth. Oh my god. Derleth. Sorry. Which contrasted with Lovecraft's view of the world and his approach to cosmic horror. As a result, the author's works are often misunderstood and misrepresented in today's culture. It's also worth noting that Lovecraft was never really interested in creating a mythology, and the term Cthulhu mythos was coined by Derleth after the author left the mortal plane. Yes, actually, in his lifetime, Lovecraft did not call it the Cthulhu mythos. He did not really consider Cthulhu to be the central character of the old gods. Rather, he would actually refer to it as Yog-Sothothery, in reference to Yog-Sothoth, which he considered to be more important to the mythos as a whole. And of course, it wasn't as this says, it wasn't quite a centralized mythos. It was rather just a thing that Lovecraft liked to write and make interconnected, kind of as he felt like it. He wasn't trying to world build a whole universe. Lovecraft's attempts to find a job in 1925 were influenced by advice he received from friends. Among others, he started freelancing for a marketing magazine where he would write announcements and commercials. Feel free to judge his copywriting skills for yourself. An ad for Curtis Woodwork. Curtis Woodwork embraces both the structural unit, both the usual structural units, and the cleverest contrivances of built-in or permanent furniture, such as bookcases, dressers, buffets, and cupboards. Every model is conceived and created with the purest art, ripest scholarship, and the mellowest craftsmanship which energetic enterprise can command, and made to conform rigidly to the architecture on each particular type of home. The cost, considering quality, is amazingly low, and a trademark on the individual pieces prevents any substitution by careless contractors. You can tell Lovecraft does love his, I forget what it's called, but you can call it purple prose, where everything has to have a fucking adjective to it. Every single thing he says has to have an adjective to it. That's part of what makes reading Lovecraft fun. It is very, very engaging writing, I think. Here's a clock. The lady's face. In a box. In a book. Find half of the trivia pieces hidden in the game. Oh, good lord. These days, the word scientist is a widely accepted term. At the time Dagon was published, was subject to a wide debate. After the author used it in the story, critics pointed out that man of science was a more appropriate term to employ. He admitted, in defense of Dagon, that if Dagon were to be reprinted, he would indeed use the phrase they suggested. Scientist was coined as an analog to artist, used when referring to those studying different branches of science. Yet, in the 19th and early 20th century, scientific researchers in Great Britain and the United States were of the opinion that a man of science, resembling the term man of letters, was the only proper choice. Among other things, it was gender-specific, indicating that science was an endeavor to be pursued by only one sex. The term scientist became more accepted only after World War II, and man of science faded into obscurity as an old-fashioned synonym. Probably didn't help the man of science that the field of science, while it remains dominated by men today, did have some pretty significant female contributors throughout the early 20th century. Very famously, Marie Curie, who played a huge part of the foundation of our understanding of radiation. I'm having a good time with this game just because there's not much game, but I get to ramble about shit.
It is at night, especially when the moon is gibbous and waning, that I see the thing.
Gibbous! Yes. Now we know what gibbous means.
I tried morphine, but the drug has given only transient surcease, and has drawn me into its clutches as a hopeless slave. So now I am to end it all, having written a full account for the information or the contemptuous amusement of my fellow men.
Ooh, what's that? Lovecraft hated tobacco, even though he used to smoke when he was 12 in order to look and feel like an adult. I'm sorry. That I had to break character there for a moment. God damn. I forget that the 1910s was a fucking time, man. When he was 12, he used to smoke to feel like an adult. In his correspondence with his friend Reinhard Kleiner, he claims that he quit as soon as he started wearing long pants. What does that even mean? He also had a very strong opinion about alcohol, as evidenced by his letter to Zelia Brown, dated 13th February 1928. As for the matter of drinking, I have never tasted intoxicating liquor or never intend to, having a strong aesthetic disgust at anything which blunts or courses the delicate natural equipoise of the evolved human intellect and imagination. Drinking excited my personal repugnance, hence I don't drink. Let the herd do what they will. I am rather in favor of prohibition, the prohibition of any one antisocial force as well as any other. Very... I'll say it. Lovecraft would have loved to be on Reddit. He would have absolutely adored being able to get updates for writing shit like that. You bastard. I don't drink either. I just don't like the taste. But Lovecraft's a absolutely this is like the most Reddit way of saying you don't drink because you don't, it makes you feel superior to other people not to drink. It's just wearing like long shorts, I guess. I don't know. I'm assuming that's what it means. That's the only thing that makes sense to me. Alright, let's do the morphine.
Often, I ask myself if it could not all have been a pure phantasm.
I mean, it seems like it. I think, given that we woke up in the hospital with no sign of the whole thing, probably.
A mere freak of fever, as I lay sun-stricken and raving in the open boat, after my escape from the German man of war. This I ask myself, but ever does there come before me a hideously vivid vision in reply. I cannot think of the deep sea without shuddering at the nameless things that may at this very moment be crawling and floundering on its slimy bed.
I mean, that's true even without Lovecraftian horrors. Deep sea is fucked, man. We don't go there for a reason. We have the technology. It's expensive though, and we don't like the things that are down there enough to spend that much money on it. Fuck the deep sea, man.
Worshipping their ancient stone idols and carving their own detestable likenesses on submarine obelisks of water-soaked granite. I dream of a day when they may rise above the billows to drag down into their reeking talons the remnants of puny, war-exhausted mankind. Of a day when the land shall sink and the dark ocean shall ascend amidst universal pandemonium.
Okay, now I kind of want to play that game. That's actually awesome. I kind of want to play that game. (1920s, 1930s trying to survive. The 1920s trying to survive a mass-scale global invasion by the Deep Ones.
I hear a noise at the door, as of some immense slippery body lumbering against it.
Oh. Oh, that's not good. So maybe we can share our morphine with it. If it has morphine, if we have any morphine left, we can share our morphine with it, and it will probably leave us alone.
It shall not find me. God, that hand! The window! The window!
Right? Yep, I was just leaving. Ow. Yes, this was Dagon, a little short, pretty short visual novel version of the Dagon short story, made by I forget who, but I'm gonna put the name. I'm actually gonna put a link to this game in the description of the VOD. This is a really cool game, and it was free. So yeah, I'm gonna take a quick look at who made this. Bit Golem. The developer is called Bit Golem, and this is available for free on Steam. That was Dagon. And I know some of you don't have time to stay too much longer, but you can stay. You can lurk. That's cool. I am going to play the 2 DLCs that I bought for this game. Oh!
And scary stories have been accompanying men for centuries. They have many faces.
YouTube jump scare.
But what is their purpose? Why do we enjoy being afraid so much? During our therapy, I'll try to
Loud noises. Oh, just a little advertisement on little advertisement for Dr. Emerson's Nocturnes, which we might play the demo for this later during this Spooktober. I did not get all of the secrets, so maybe there were more secrets that I simply was too dumb to too dumb to find. No matter. We shall actually continue this stream with the 2 paid DLCs. I know there are actually 3 DLCs here. This one, the Eldritch Box, is not actually a game. This is rather a whole bunch of other content. Other audio, an audiobook, just the audiobook version of Dagon, and a couple of other interesting things like that, and an ebook version and stuff. These were all less than like $12, so not very much for this stuff. I felt like these guys deserved some money because this was a really cool take on Dagon, I thought. So we are going to start with the Railway Horror, which is well, I'll just let the game show you. This is not an official Lovecraft story, even though it may sound familiar to some of you. It's an excerpt from the writer's letter to his friend Donald Wandre from November 24, 1927, which makes this a Christmas story, yay! In which he described one of his dreams, or rather a nightmare. Profits from all DLCs, donated to humanitarian organizations. Very good. This. I think the devs deserve some money too, but I'm happy to have them donate to humanitarian aid organizations as well. This is the Railway Horror, which is a not story, but a written adaptation of Lovecraft's Nightmare. Ooh.
My dreams occasionally approached the fantastical in character, though falling somewhat short of coherence. One scene is especially stamped upon my recollection. That of a dank, fetid, reed-choked marsh under a gray autumn sky.
Oh, I forgot he's from New England. That's why he has that. I whenever I'd read what Lovecraft was writing, I didn't give him the New England accent, which I can't do a New England accent, but you know how it is, right? It has that distinctive twang to it. Back to the exploration element. Let's take a look around. A hat! In letters to his friend, Donald Wandre, Lovecraft described 2 of his dreams. After the writer's death, they were sold to the publisher of the Scientist Snaps bizarre magazine, and published in the form of short stories. The first one, titled The Very Old Folk, tells the story of one of the provinces of the Roman Republic and a mysterious mountain inhabitants performing terrible rituals. The second one was titled The Thing in the Moonlight, and it was published in January 1941. The publisher added a fabricated beginning and ending to it, in which Lovecraft, unable to free himself from the nightmare, mentally contacts a stranger. Other publishers later reprinted the story, unaware that some of the text was not authentic. It is this dream that we represent here, in its original form without any additions. Alrighty then. Look around to see if there's anything worth peeking at. Then we take a look at this peak. Aha! See what I did there? Oh, I'm so funny.
With a rugged cliff of lichen-crusted stone rising to the north.
North. Nothing else? I'm just making sure that I don't miss anything, because the game tricked me into thinking there was stuff. There wasn't stuff earlier, but there was stuff. Ooh, scanning everything. Oh, what? That has to be a thing, doesn't it? That's straight up just a scythe. Isn't it? And I'll click it. What is that if that's not a scythe? Maybe that's just an Easter egg.
Impelled by some obscure quest, I ascended a rift, or cleft, in this beetling precipice.
There's some more train parts around. Can't seem to interact with them. I feel like there probably is ways I can interact with stuff, and I just don't know how because I'm stupid. I am. Oh, hang on. I said the word stupid, and a fucking bot appeared. Die, bot.
Noting as I did so the black mouths of many fearsome burrows extending from both walls into the depths of the stony plateau.
Protagonist whose fate you follow is Lovecraft himself. After all, it is an account of his dream. Why we wanted to reproduce his way of speaking in accent as faithfully as possible. Unfortunately, the recordings of his voice have survived. That's why we've had to rely only on descriptions from numerous letters. His friends remember his voice as high-pitched, thin, and flat. However, it changed while reading or reciting. As the writer's wife, Sonia Green, recalls, his voice then became stronger, clearer, and deeply resonant. Lovecraft spoke with a New England accent, which, as the writer himself mentions, was characterized by the following. You don't sound any final R in words like ka, ba, ti. Phonetically, our common pronunciation is indistinguishable from ka, ba, etc. Oh, yeah, that's and C is etc. I think. That's an uncommon way of writing etc. In his youth, Lovecraft tested his singing skills and even recorded some of his rehearsals. My mother actually liked the results. Others are not always unbiased critics. But I saw to it that accident soon removed the incriminating evidence. Later, I tried something less ambitious. This was a better success, but reminded me so much of the way of a dying fox terrier that I very carelessly happened to drop the record soon after it was made. I have since confined my artistic talents to literature. He did not like his singing, which is a shame. That's because that would have been an interesting way to retain some of his voice. He had not been so afraid of himself. But insecurity is something that marred Lovecraft's entire life, which many people may not realize.
At several points, the passage was roofed over by the choking of the upper parts of the narrow fissure. These places being exceedingly dark and forbidding the perception of such burrows as may have existed there. In one such dark space, I felt conscious of a singular accession of fright, as if some subtle and bodiless emanation from the abyss were engulfing my spirit. But the blackness was too great for me to perceive the source of my alarm.
And the environment for shiny things. Then we shall carry on.
At length I emerged upon a tableland of moss-grown rock and scanty soil, lit up by a faint moonlight which had replaced the expiring orb of day. Casting my eyes about, I beheld no living object, but was sensible of a very peculiar stirring far below me amongst the whispering rushes of the pestilential swamp I had lately quitted.
Let's not stay here then. Right, let's get the fuck out of here. I'm sure I missed some interesting detail somewhere. Here we go. Dreams have often been an inspiration for Lovecraft. Dagon is a good example. Moreover, the writer often set the action of his stories in the Dreamland, a separate world filled with unique places, creatures, and legends. This informal dream cycle includes stories written between 1918 and 1932, such as The Cats of Ulthar, The Doom That Came to Sarnath, Polaris, and The Silver Key. They share a slightly different side of the author of Call of Cthulhu and inspirations with the work of Lord Dunsany. The protagonist associated with Dreamlands is Randolph Carter, known from, among others, one of Lovecraft's longest stories, The Grim Quest of Unknown Kadath. It tells the story of Carter's journey through the amazing lands in search of a wonderful city who appeared to him in his dream. Yeah, much of the Lovecraft's work is not connected to the Cthulhu mythos, but it all often has a very similar feel, and so it's often referenced related. The doom that came to Zarnath, for example, does involve an event similar to Dagon, where something that's similar to an obelisk appears, and something similar to the Deep Ones appears to destroy a city. That is, in fact, what happens to Zarnath, but not quite clear if it's intended to be the same setting. As I've said, that's not necessarily something Lovecraft was interested in, telling people a story of a world. He's not Tolkien in that respect. Rather, he was more interested in the stories themselves in isolation. Around a bit more. This is definitely something that should be interactable with, right? But I cannot, for the life of me, figure out if there is a way to interact with it. It looks like I should be able to, or maybe, I don't know, maybe I have to not interact with it. Maybe I have to do replays to interact with these objects. No matter. We carry on forward. Uh-oh.
After walking for some distance, I encountered the rusty tracks of a street railway and the worm-eaten poles which still held the limp and sagging trolley wire.
Oh, yeah, there's a Dre scene. And it feels like there should be things we can interact with here, but I don't know. I did not design these games. I don't know why some things feel like they should be interacted with, but are not interactable. Oh. That's creepy. Look at this. Lovecraft believed that authors could make their stories more credible by exchanging ideas and drawing from each other's works. The best example is the famous invented book Necronomicon, which also appeared in the works of his friends, such as Robert Bloch, later creator of Psycho, and Robert E. Howard, creator of Conan the Barbarian. Its presence in the works of various other writers have led to the mythologization of the Necronomicon, and the appearance of references to the book in countless novels, films, and other works of pop culture. Lovecraft himself also used elements of other people's works, such as the books I struggle with German quite a bit. Unaussprechlichen Kulten, Nameless Cults, by Robert E. Howard, and Die Vermis Mysteries, Mysteries of the Worm, De Vermis Mysteries, by Robert Bloch. Astur, a creature borrowed from Robert W. Chambers, author of The King in Yellow, who was inspired by Ambrose Bierce, also used his land of Carcosa, which later appeared in the TV series True Detective. Chathogoa, creature invented by Clark A. Smith, Lovecraft slightly changed its appearance and included it in his stories. We wanted to follow this tradition, so we included objects from 3 other games created by our friends. I wonder if you will be able to recognize them. I'm assuming that this is something. I do not know which game that is from, and I'm assuming also that the scythe we found earlier probably also a reference to a game by their friends. But I also do not know where that is from. If you're watching the VOD, comment on the video if you know where these references are from. Please and thank you.
Following this line, I soon came upon a yellow vestibuled car numbered 1852 of a plain, double-trucked type common from 1900 to 1910. It was untenanted, but evidently ready to start.
The railway has always fascinated people. The mighty power of machines, the freedom to travel, vast distances, the romanticism, and almost unrestricted exploration. Thousands of strangers passing each other every day. And also the desolate train stations, dreamlike journeys through the night, fatal accidents, and dangerous strangers. No wonder that this topic attracted horror and fantasy writers, from Charles Dickens' The Signal Man through Robert Bloch's award-winning That Hellbound Train to Clive Barker's The Midnight Meat Train. That's not appropriate, Clive Barker. That's not an appropriate title. Give you a Midnight Meat Train. Alright. It's also impossible not to mention the most important Polish weird fiction writer, Stefan Grabinski, whose most famous collection of stories, The Motion Demon, is dedicated to the railway. You will be able to get acquainted with his work through our next game. Yay! And by the way, the steam locomotive was first used to transport passengers since 1825. I wonder if it has anything to do with the number dreamed by Lovecraft. Well, no, the 2 and the 5 are in different positions. That's clearly unrelated. It would not surprise me if Lovecraft looked up when the first passenger train drove, changed the numbers around, and did that in his letter, because who doesn't want to sound smart?
The trolley being on the wire and the air brake pump now and then throbbing beneath the floor.
Look around, see anything interesting? Or shall we just get on? Oh, that's some snappy sound effects. Ow, that actually hurt my ears.
I boarded it and looked vainly about for the light switch.
Do train carts have light switches? I guess it does have internal lamps.
Noting as I did so the absence of controller handle, which implied the brief absence of the motorman. Then I sat down in one of the cross seats toward the middle, awaiting the arrival of the crew and starting of the vehicle.
Yeah, you know, because that's what you do when you find a random, unattended, completely isolated cart just standing in the middle of the empty wasteland. Is you go and have a seat and assume that, you know, someone will come along to start driving the train eventually, right? Look around. Oh, there we go. In 1927, Donald Wandre hitchhiked from Minnesota to Rhode Island to visit Lovecraft, sometimes having to spend the night outdoors during the trip. Over the course of more than 2 weeks, Lovecraft showed the guest around the most interesting places of his hometown of Providence and the surrounding area. He also went, among others, to Boston. The writer wanted to show his friend the house, which partly inspired the story Pickman's Model. Unfortunately, it turned out that it had been demolished. However, the truly chilling, literally, event occurred later when another of Lovecraft's friends, James F. Morton, arrived. 3 of them went to a store in Warren where they took part in an ice cream eating contest. Each of them tried as many as 28 types. Lovecraft himself admitted that he ate about 2.5 liters of this delicacy. The statement describing their feat was framed and hung on the wall of the store. Ice cream, genuinely very, very popular, unusual, like, it was not a popular thing in Europe at the time, but it was very popular in the United States at this time. It only became popular around the rest of the world after World War II, when it was exported by United States military presence around the world. And that is a very funny story. I did not know that. That is a little bit about Lovecraft I did not know. See, this game is already worth my time, man.
Presently, I heard a swishing in the sparse grass toward the left and saw the dark forms of the 2 men looming up in the moonlight. They had the regulation caps of a railway company, and I could not doubt but that they were the conductor and motorman. Then one of them sniffed with singular sharpness and raised his face to howl at the moon.
Snipper, snipper, snipper.
The other dropped on all
Oh, Jesus,
fours to
fuck.
run toward the car.
Ah, right.
I leapt up and at once raced madly out of that car.
All right, right. Yeah. That seems like a correct choice. Fuck this. Nope. Big time nopes. Big time nopes. Not dealing with any furries. Not dealing with the furries today.
And away across endless leagues of plateau till exhaustion waked me.
We are not sticking around to deal with people who will stand up and howl. Those people are not safe to be around.
Doing this not because the conductor had dropped on all fours, but because the face of the motorman was a mere white cone, tapering to one blood-red tentacle.
Oh, that's definitely a sex thing. That guy is wearing some kind of fucked up gimp mask. Ah, yeah, Lovecraft, you're right. We need to get the fuck out of here. We need to get the fuck out of here right now. We hope you enjoyed this little journey into the world of Lovecraft's nightmares. Apparently his nightmares were about fucking furries and gimp masks. And, oh, it's terrible. Don't like that. Don't like that one bit. Ugh. That's genuinely horrifying. Fuck me. No. Do not want. No. No. Oh, that was gross. I missed 2. Oh, I missed 1 there at the end when I was running away. Alright. Well, we have one more DLC story that I think be the most interesting to end on. By which I mean something to wind us down after that horrific, horrible, whatever ending there is to the railway horror. Ugh. This is The Little Glass Bottle. The Little Glass Bottle is a short 5-10 minute adaptation of a story by Howard Phillips Lovecraft written when he was about 7 years old. Original words and spelling have been kept. Yes, this is something written by Lovecraft as a literal child. So we are either about to see some really weird, embarrassing shit, or we are about to feel humiliated by the fact that a 7-year-old writes better than we do. Get into it.
Heave to! There's something floating to the leeward. The speaker was a short, stockily built man whose name was William Jones. He was the captain of a small catboat in which he and a party of men were sailing at the time the story opens.
There they are, our party of men. Yes. Hey. The moon is just a piece of cheese. Are party of men available for investigation? No? Alright.
Aye, aye, sir, answered John Towers, and the boat was brought to a standstill. Captain Jones reached out his hand for the object, which he now discerned to be a glass bottle.
Oh.
Nothing but a rum flask that the men on the passing boat threw over, he said. But from an impulse of curiosity, he reached out for it.
I mean... Oh, gotta clean up after... Don't you hate it when other people throw their trash and you have to pick it up? But you do it anyway because it's the right thing to do.
It was a rum flask, and he was about to throw it away when he noticed a piece of paper in it. He pulled it out, and on it read the following. January 1st, 1864. I am John Jones, who writes this letter. My ship is fast sinking with the treasure on board. I am where it is marked on the enclosed chart. Captain Jones turned the sheet over, and the other side was a chart.
Huh. It's a very informative chart. It's Indian Ocean, Australia, and that's it.
On the edge were written these words. Dotted lines represent course we took. Towers, said Captain Jones excitedly. Read this. Towers did as he was directed. I think it would pay to go, said Captain Jones. Do you? Just as you say, replied Towers. We'll charter a schooner this very day, said the excited captain. All right, said Towers.
He's in Norway. There we go. There's an interesting legend about one of the offshoots of the Lovecraft lineage, the Musgraves. They were in possession of a 14th century chalice, most likely from Syria or Egypt, called the Luck of Edenhall. Legend has it that the goblet belonged to some fairies who happily drank from it at the St. Cuthbert's Well. When curious people suddenly appeared there, the fairies escaped, abandoning the goblet, and one of them shouted out a warning. If this cup should break or fall, farewell, the Luck of Edenhall. Fortunately, the chalice survived, and you can still admire it at the V&A Museum in London. This legend has been reappearing in pop culture over the years, ranging from an old German ballad to the name to a pop rock band to manga. Huh.
So they hired a boat.
Indeed. Now we should look around for more stuff. Ah! One of Lovecraft's favorite children's games was creating complex scenes using building blocks, models, tin soldiers, and clouds of earth. With their help, he played out various historical scenarios. These events were sometimes short-lived, they represented a war, a plague, or simply a thrilling spectacle of travel, commerce, or some event that led nowhere. Sometimes they spanned long eons, reflecting changes in the appearance of the landscape and buildings. Especially interesting considering his later writing career. There was a kind of intoxication to being lord of a visible world, albeit a miniature one, and determining the flow of its events. It was not only his childhood pastime. He enjoyed not his only childhood pastime. He enjoyed riding a bike and received for his 10th birthday so much that 10 years later he described himself from that period as a veritable bicycle centaur. Riding a bike he received for his 10th birthday. Oh, so hard to read this. I was gonna say, I relate big time to growing up building with building blocks, models, tin soldiers, and indeed clods of earth if I was playing outside. Lego really did a lot of that. And then Warhammer figurines when you grow older. And of course, you know, other figures as you grow up. Being creatively minded really draws you to those kinds of toys, I think. Not just the building, but the playing out of scenarios and having your little world in your hands, making things happen. And that ultimately is what leads you to writing, and why I enjoy writing to this day.
And started off governed by the dotted lines of the chart.
Of the chart. A cute art style on this this little short. H.P. Lovecraft learned to read at the age of 4. He quickly became interested in exact sciences, especially chemistry. As a 9-year-old, he even started publishing his own amateur magazine, The Scientific Gazette, and sometime later the series The Chemistry. Around 1900, the future master of horror developed an interest in Antarctica and began writing treatises and expeditions to the continent. That really influenced one of his famous works, At the Mountains of Madness, then 30 years later. At the Mountains of Madness is awesome, by the way. Certainly makes it easier to add some creative play when doing Lego and whatnot. Yes, absolutely. I love creativity so much. I enjoy role playing. I enjoy writing short stories and writing fanfiction, all that. It's just fun. It's genuinely just so much fun. I was gonna say, At the Mountains of Madness is awesome. It's one of my favorite Lovecraft stories, in part because it includes the point where a Shoggoth rolls himself into a ball and demolishes the entire flock of penguins in a furious rage. Just a giant blob of death and teeth turns himself into a ball and rolls over an entire flock of penguins just to slaughter them for no reason because he's a jerk. Well, he is doing it to chase down the main character, but still, it's definitely one of the more action-packed Lovecraft stories, Mountains of Madness. As a 12-year-old, Lovecraft discovered astronomy, which he later considered his most moving experience. Realizing the immensity of the cosmos had a huge impact on his worldview and work laying the foundations of the cosmic horror genre. The majesty of the concept of an expanding universe still makes me shudder in a unique manner. This game very much worth your time if you're interested at all in Lovecraft's life and history, and just his work in general. This is really cool.
In 4 weeks, they reached the place where directed.
Also, I will stand by that this 7-year-old definitely writes better than some 27-year-olds these days. Have anything to investigate up here? No? It's a shame, because I like looking at these little investigative bits and bobs.
And the divers went down.
Hey! Old school divers. I love the old school. This type of diving helmet is very, very awesome looking. Such a style. There we go. Lovecraft developed interest in literature at a very young age. One of the first books he read was Grimm's Fairy Tales. A year later, at the age of 5, he discovered the 1001 Nights collection. Good lord! Who's reading Grimm's Fairy Tales and 1001 Nights at the age of 4 and 5? As a 6-year-old, he came across the darkly atmospheric illustrations by Gustave Doré, which made a huge impression on him. At the same age, he became fascinated with Hellenistic myths and began his writing adventure. Again, I can definitely relate to this, where you're even... Like, I remember being in grade school and going to the library and just looking up fantasy stuff. Obviously, when I was doing it, it was a very different literature environment than in the early 1900s, but still. Ooh, it does make you feel very connected as a creative, just to the universal experience, not quite a universal experience, but certainly an experience shared across time and space by many creative peoples, from Lovecraft to me, and the many other people throughout the world. Just when you're so young and so open to new ideas, it can absolutely fundamentally shape you. See something as simple as a book with puzzles, with maze puzzles, but the maze puzzles are themed in like a medieval fantasy world. That's something I remember from when I was very young, maybe 6 years old. My attempts to write in verse, the first of which I made at the age of 6, were then in the form of raw, internally rhyming ballads, and they sang about the deeds of gods and heroes. However, 2 years later, its literary taste underwent a key shift. That's when I covered Edgar Allan Poe. It was my downfall at the age of 8. I saw the blue firmament of Argos and Sicily plunge into the darkness of the miasmic fumes of the tomb. Alright. So, at the age of 8, he became the edgelord that we all know and love. If not for Edgar Allan Poe, Lovecraft would have been writing about Greek mythology and ballads about love and heroics instead of horrible underwater nightmare creatures. Oh, speaking of horrible underwater nightmare creatures, those are definitely fish. Are a type of horrible underwater nightmare creatures. Go away, fish. Ah! Oh no! It's them! It's the nightmare creatures, aren't there? Whipple Van Buren Phillips, Lovecraft's grandfather, was a very important figure in his life, as the writer said himself. My beloved grandfather became the center of my universe. Van Buren Phillips introduced his grandson to various works of art he brought from his travels, exchanged letters with him, and helped him develop his passions. He largely replaced Lovecraft's dead father. Interestingly, he also cured him of his fear of the dark by encouraging him to walk through a series of dark rooms. Young Howard's grandfather was probably the only family member to tell Lovecraft improvised mystery tales, which undoubtedly influenced his later work. Oh, that's ominous sounding sound. Just a little... Is that a clock or a bottle? Look around to see if there's anything we can investigate. And then click our way into them. Picking up this treasure. Ooh. If anybody has thalassophobia, sorry for lingering on this scene. Let's get out of here.
And came up with an iron bottle. They found in it the following lines scribbled on a piece of brown paper. December 3rd, 1880. Dear Searcher, excuse me for the practical joke I have played on you. But it serves you right to find nothing for your foolish act. Well, it does, said Captain Jones. Go on. However, I will defray your expenses to and from the place you found your bottle. I think it will be $250, so that amount you will find in an iron box. I know where you found the bottle, because I put this bottle here, and the iron box. And then found a good place to put the second bottle, hoping the enclosed money will defray your expenses. Some I close. Anonymous.
What a dick! Oh my god. There are a few puzzling elements in the little glass bottle. For example, the number 25.0.00, which is not a typo as this amount appears in the text 3 times. It's not entirely clear why Lovecraft decided to write out the numbers away and what he meant by it. While publishers and translators interpret it in various ways, in our opinion, he most likely meant $250. Map used in the game replicates the original version drawn by Lovecraft for the story. Did you notice that the land marked on it is signed as Australia? Australia. A simple typo, or maybe young Howard is already creating his own lands and unknown lands in the imagination. Nah, that's just how it's pronounced in Australian. Australia. Not Australia is how it's spelled, but it's Australia is how it's pronounced. So clearly Lovecraft was just... Also puzzling that the dates in the letters of both bottles are almost 17 years apart. I assume that's just because the guy who wrote the bottle was a dick and pretended to have written it earlier.
I'd like to kick his head off, said Captain Jones. Here, diver, go and get the $250.
Right. Let's take one more look around. See if there's anything we can spot to... Or we're just gonna have to go right back down there and go kick that. And then we're gonna, you know, we're gonna spend the money. We're gonna find that guy 20 years after he put up this prank, and we're gonna kick his teeth in. Influenced by 1001 Nights, Lovecraft started using the pseudonym Abdul al-Hasred and persuaded his mother to take him to all the Oriental curio shops and fit him up an Arabian corner in his room. It is not entirely certain whether the pseudonym was created by the young writer himself or invented by the family lawyer Albert A. Baker. The name Abdul al-Hasred is certainly very well known to lovers of the Cthulhu mythology. Nicknamed the Mad Arab, Abdul was the author of the Necronomicon, the infamous forbidden book of secret knowledge, has been mentioned by Lovecraft in various works. Later, Howard became very fascinated by ancient Rome, which resulted in the adoption of another nickname at the age of 7, El Valerius Masala, which he used during games. Abdul al-Hasred is an interesting, like, funny character as he appears in some later books, because, you know, he's the Mad Arab, author of the Necronomicon and all that. Bro gets eaten by, I believe, like, Hounds of Tindalos or something in public. Like, he's just fucking around, like, in an open marketplace or something, and has been dealing with dark magic and stuff. And then he just gets obliterated, like, his body gets inverted and he disappears in a horrible, messy, body-destroying nightmare explosion. And everybody sees it and everybody's wondering, like, what the fuck was that? And then he's just gone. That's death of Abdul al-Hasred, if I remember correctly. Gets fucked up by some other. He keeps fucking around with the otherworldly stuff, and then he just gets obliterated by it. And, like, not in, like, usually in a Lovecraft story, it will be like they will disappear into the shadows, and they will be at home at night and commit suicide because they've gone mad or something. No, Abdul al-Hasred is literally out in public during the middle of the day and gets fucking destroyed by the monsters. Like, nothing secret about it. He just gets absolutely wrecked.
In a minute, the diver came up bearing an iron box.
Hey!
Inside it was found $250. It defrayed their expenses. But I hardly think that they will ever go to a mysterious place as directed by a mysterious bottle.
I mean, might have. I hope you enjoyed this little trip into the world of Lovecraft's childhood. We appreciate the moment. Feedback. My feedback, this shit kicks ass. I'm glad they included this DLC. I definitely feel like that was worth my time, actually. That's funny. That's genuinely fucking funny. And yeah, you know what? I stand by it. People should just feel bad that a 7-year-old writes better than they do. Oh, I got all of them actually, except for the very first one. I missed one at the very start. Oh well. That was all of the content. Yes, a bit more lighthearted and the spookiness, absolutely. That's why I felt it was a good way to end the first day of Spooktober. Tomorrow, I am going to play something much more video gamey. and probably, hopefully, a little more actually scary. This one was not that scary, but it's pretty atmospheric, and I really enjoyed this. And considering the game was free, and the DLC was pretty cheap, I'm very happy with how this turned out. So now I'm just going to find someone to raid, and we are going to call this for the night. It can always be difficult to find someone interesting not someone appropriate to raid, someone who is doing something. Someone who's doing something Lovecraft related, but is also not too big a channel. But there's not a lot of people playing this game, so not a lot of good options here. Not a lot of people on. Like, I kind of expected there to be more. Have oh, here we have someone. All right, we're gonna raid out to Meowie, who is playing Call of Cthulhu and is also doing an Spooktober stream. So let's do that, and I will see you guys hopefully tomorrow. And if I don't see you,